Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are listening to the most electrifying podcast in all of internet radio today. You are listening to the Sports Wire. My name is Vinny Apicella, broadcasting to you from beautiful, historic New Britain, Connecticut, and I've got another special show on tap for you today. I know I haven't recorded a podcast since last Wednesday when Bubba Collins was our guest. We had a really good show. It was like an hour and a half long podcast, which I had kind of been moving away from due to going daily. But I wanted to kind of give that episode some time to breathe. I probably should have done a couple more this week, but especially with a very unique an unprecedented WrestleMania with no fans this past Saturday and Sunday, I should say. The first WrestleMania that was too big for one night. And we'll get into that a little more. But anyways, I have a guest coming on the show today, and her name is Liz Pugliese. And I will get her to pronounce her last name properly. Even though it's Italian, sometimes not all Italian stuff is pronounced the same. So, Pugliese, Pugliese maybe, Liz Pugliese, that's probably better. But she will be joining me in just a little bit. We'll be talking WrestleMania, we'll be talking WWE, the sad news about, breaking news as of yesterday, the XFL has gone ahead and decided to suspend all league operations and terminate all players and personnel, and apparently they're not coming back for the 2021 season. So it's just sad news for what happened. For earlier, for what was played, the games were good. The competition was great. It was a good alternative to the NFL. They were working out the kinks, but things looked great. And unfortunately now they're not coming back because of this coronavirus garbage. Sad news. So chalk up another fatality in the COVID-19, and that is the XFL, which is sad because, I really think they could have made a go at it. You cannot compare this XFL to the previous incarnation of the XFL or the AAF, which played last year, because they didn't run out of money. It wasn't Attitude Era football that looked, hokey and scripted and all that. It was good football, and, they didn't run out of money midway through the season. They had everything funded for the whole year, but, unfortunately this happened, and Vince McMahon lost a lot of money, and every day this goes on, he's losing even more. I mean, think about it. He sold a lot of shares of WWE so that he had money to keep the XFL afloat, to keep, the WWE going, and especially with this past WrestleMania that had no fans. It was supposed to be at Raymond James Stadium in Tampa. That's 80,000 people that were supposed to be there. And I'm sure the refunds had to kill them. The people that have already bought tickets and they're having to refund all that money. And, it's like, granted, I know they had insurance on the event, which is why they had to do what they had to do. But either way, it's hard to fathom. But anyways, give me a little bit and we'll be back with Liz Pugliese. See, I said it that way. That's probably it. And we'll be right back, and she'll be on the line with us. Give it to 805. Well, we'd like to welcome Liz. Forgive me if I butcher your last name. Uh, is it Pugliese?
It's Pugliese.
Pugliese, okay. To the Sports Wire. And how are you today?
Pretty good, pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing good. And thank you for joining me on this uh, day, what is it, day 15 of quarantine?
Something like that. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And so let's get our listeners acquainted, because you did put out a tweet or retweeted the SportsWire's tweet earlier this week saying it was your one-time return to podcasting. So you have history in podcasting?
Yeah, very little. I did Raw and SmackDown reviews first with Harry and Brandon over at W2M Wrestling to the Max, and then more recently over at the Chair Shot with Harry and Tony.
Okay. Oh, very nice. So you don't do that anymore, I take it?
No, I don't think there's too many wrestling podcasts over at Wrestling to the Max, oddly enough. At the moment, it's kind of shifting focus. Great bunch of people. Sean runs a great site, and with the chair shot, I took a little bit of a break for a bit. Has some things going on, but mainly it's really hard to record at 11:30 to like 1:30 in the morning. So
Yeah. Oh, I could definitely understand that. Well, I'd like to welcome you back to podcasting officially, and so let's get some background. Like, obviously, you are a wrestling fan, seeing that you have done Raw and SmackDown reviews.
right.
And how long have you been a wrestling fan?
I'd have to easily say. I mean, I'm 44, so I'd have to easily say a long, long time. I remember, I watched it since I was a kid. We used to get all the pay-per-views and have like pay-per-view parties. My mother would put out like the amazing stuff. All my brothers' friends would come, um, things like that. So I'd have to say since I was like at least 6 or 7.
Very nice. I have the similar fandom experience. I started very early. It was actually my grandmother that got me into it, and she would have the cable scrambler box, so we would get all the pay-per-views over her house, and it was the same thing. We would, especially because Survivor Series was always on Thanksgiving at the
Mm-hmm.
time, so we'd have Thanksgiving dinner, that we'd all go
Right.
watch Survivor Series. Back before wrestling has gone through a major boom period, and 15 pay-per-views a year now with WWE alone.
Okay.
And anyway, so let's jump with both feet into it. Give me your thoughts on this unique, unprecedented, no fans WrestleMania last weekend.
So I might be in the minority group, but I actually really enjoyed it. I've actually been enjoying for the most part. I think the first couple of Raw and SmackDowns, they were like trying to feel things out, like what they were going to do. They have a lot more time to fill than AEW does.
Right.
And AEW, of course, is doing a great job as well. Probably a little bit more action on their side. But it's 5 hours just with Raw and SmackDown compared to 2. And
Right.
I'm not knocking AEW. They're doing a great job, of course. But so everybody was like, oh, it's going to be horrible. They shouldn't be having it, which they probably shouldn't have, and whatnot. But I actually enjoyed it more than I enjoyed the last couple of WrestleManias. I thought it had. I liked day one little bit more than I liked day two. I thought day two was like really rushed and maybe not as cohesive. And that's just my opinion. I don't know, really know much. Um, but I enjoyed it. I think that the guys and gals can really get into their promos. They don't have everything hijacked by the crazy fans shouting what or you suck, or
Right.
whatever.
Yep.
So I think they've been doing, for the most part, a really good, good job. I thought there was a lot of really good matches. I, the two title matches were kind of like, whatever. Um,
Yeah.
and you felt, especially for Drew, you felt bad, like he didn't have that mania moment because all the fans, or the majority of them, are like really want to see him as champ. And with Braun, obviously, it was going to be Roman, so people would have been going, annoyed about that anyway. So
Right.
both those matches were like really short and a little odd, in my opinion. But overall, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it way more than I did the last two previous WrestleManias. Let's say.
Yeah, and you know what? I enjoyed it as well. I'm with you. Going up to it, I was excited for it just because of the newness. It's like you very rarely get anything new in wrestling
Mm-hmm.
nowadays. Obviously, AEW being a new company, they're still in that honeymoon period. Albeit not everything is for everyone. Uh, you have some things. AEW has uh, a lot of different types and styles that some of it's going to appeal to some people, some of it's not going to appeal to some people. There's some good and bad in both. So AEW is still in that honeymoon period, but in WWE terms, you don't have many things new anymore. This was the first time WrestleMania was on 2 nights. Obviously, it was easier to do because they were doing it in the Performance Center and everything was pre-recorded, so all they had to do was, edit it together.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I have to say, I enjoyed it, and I think I enjoyed it more because I had a little bit, lower expectations of it. Like I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know, like I wasn't thrilled with the title matches. I mean, they were just literally finisher matches.
Right.
Four spears, four power slams, and Braun's a champ. Then you get, four F5s and four Claymore kicks, and Drew's the champ. So, you know, the two people I have to say I really feel bad for uh, not having the fans were Drew McIntyre for one and Edge. Edge coming back his first singles match. A lot of people said that that uh, last man standing match when there were a couple of criticisms about that match. One being that it was too long, and the other being that spot where I think it was Randy Orton had uh, put had held Edge up with the strap from one of the workout machines, and a lot of people were cringing at that because of the Chris Benoit incident and especially with Dark Side of the Ring, Chris Benoit story airing the week prior.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't offended by it. I didn't care. I thought it was a pretty good spot because it was literally Randy Orton was trying to hold Edge up to do more moves to him. But either way, I enjoyed it myself. Long story short, how did you feel about the Boneyard match? And then we'll get to the Firefly Funhouse match afterwards. But how did you feel about the Boneyard match?
And this is, I'm going to say this, my first reaction to both of them was like, what the hell am I watching? Like,
Yeah.
where are they going with this? But, I think, yeah, it took me a couple of seconds to get into it because like this is like so weird. But they did such a great job with it. The music, the settings. I mean, they really made it like a little mini action movie, and
Right.
you really got drawn into it. And I think the moment I got really drawn into it, and this might sound stupid, is when the Undertaker was like Alan, because you never really hear them,
Right.
and I was like, oh wait, he's mad, he's a old man. Um,
Yeah.
but I think they did a great job with it. I think AJ had some great, acting in it and such. and with the acolytes turning on him. I was
Yeah.
never really into he had a great theme song though. At that time I was never really into whatever they called him when he was the biker. My mind just went blank.
Oh, Rolling by Limp
Yeah, I
Bizkit.
love that song, but whatever they called the Undertaker at that time, that whole gimmick,
The
the
American,
American guy.
the American
Yeah,
Badass.
I never really listened to that too much as opposed to like the actual Undertaker.
Yeah.
But hey, that's who he really is. So maybe at this stage where he's working, once a year, that's easier for him to do. Not easier, but better for him to do. But overall, I thought um, they totally, what they I guess they changed it from a casket match or whatever. But I
Hmm.
think that they really pulled together, especially with. I think if they didn't have the music and such, that it would have been a little
Right.
less than it was. But adding the music and all the effects and everything, I think that really knocked it out of the park.
I agree. I enjoyed it. And it begs the question going forward. Will they do more of these? Cinematic matches, so to speak. And you really can't even call them
Mm-hmm.
matches because they're not. They're not. Uh, you know, uh, traditional wrestling matches. But could we see a version of that? Maybe next year's WrestleMania. Um, could that help? Number one, extend the Undertaker's career because he's not taking as many bumps, and they could set up crash pads, and it's like it really is. It's like a mini action movie. And could we possibly get uh, that dream match between the Undertaker and Sting in that way? Because we all know the Sting can't wrestle because of the spinal stenosis. But that's a traditional wrestling match. Could we see something like this and you know have that dream fantasy matchup of the Undertaker versus Sting?
No, I suppose you could. I'll be honest. I could care less if I ever see the Undertaker and Sting wrestle in any type of match. In my honest opinion, I think the Undertaker should have stayed retired a few times ago. Um,
Okay.
it's not a popular opinion, but it's my belief. Um, I don't know if it would work at next year's WrestleMania, seeing as theoretically it's going to be live and back in an arena. But I
Yep.
could, and then it would be taped and everybody would be watching on this. So I think the people at home would benefit more from it than the people in the stands
Hmm.
watching it on the Titantron. I could see them though with something like the Undertaker or even some other big rivalry, um, having some type of network special where
Okay.
these
Yep.
cinematic, style events that are going to be billed as so brutal, it needs its own hour, or whatever.
Right. Right. Yeah. I think I think that's a great idea. And even AJ Styles himself has come out and said the cinematic matches could work, but they can't do them all the time. It has to be spaced out. Has to give have it time to
Mm-hmm.
breathe. Um, Now, switching gears, how did you feel about the Firefly Funhouse match?
Well, that one you definitely can't call a match. I don't know in any way, shape, or form. I think was I texting you during it? I don't remember. I was like, "What the hell? What am I watching?" Like, what is this? That one took a lot longer to get into it, and then it was just so crazy. I know
Yep.
people are like so concerned about it and whatnot, but again, the same with the Boneyard. It was nice to see them do something different. This is where, like, I think the WWE will really excel again. In my opinion, that even though people go on and on about the ratings, I still think they're excelling the other
Yeah.
companies or whatever. Um, I think it was it showed a lot of depth to Bray, and it showed a whole other side of Cena that I don't think people were really
Right.
expecting. I know that he's done his movies, but this was kind of seeing his best acting. I've seen, and I don't really watch his movies too much, that I've seen in anything that he's done. I think it showed a whole other side of him, and just shows how
Hmm.
good Bray is in this character in what he does.
Oh, I definitely agree. And It's like it was weird, and I think some of the criticism that I would have is if you're let's say you're a newer fan or a younger fan, you wouldn't have gotten the references to Saturday Night's
Hmm.
Main Event or even NWO Monday Nitro, because those weren't even around in Cena's era. Like the original Saturday Night's Main Event with the blue cage, and that was way before, that was Hogan
But
era. Uh,
that was Bray's father, Bray's uncle. That was all stuff, that his family was, involved in,
right.
which I remember. I'm a huge Barry Windham fan. Um,
Yep.
but yeah, if you're not of a certain age, you're gonna a lot of it you've heard of, but you're not gonna be like really get where they were going with that.
Right. And with the NWO Monday Nitro reference, from what I was told, that was put in there so Cena could see what would happen if he did a big heel turn, like Hogan did back in the late '90s. Uh, because there was a lot of stuff, especially in the late 2000s. What if Cena turned heel and created a new NWO, and he would have been that Hollywood Hogan style heel turn, because nobody, I mean, everybody wanted it. Everybody wanted a Cena heel turn, but nobody expected it to happen. Uh, and it's the same thing with Hogan. Nobody expected Hogan to ever turn heel, and that's exactly what happened at Bash of the Beach, and it reinvigorated his career.
And I think I see people still saying, "Oh, they want Cena, to turn heel." I think if he came back to any stretch of time, I think that would be the best way to do it, to really reinvent him. And this
Right.
whole psychological thing would be a great way to set it up. Bray got into his head, you know, twisted him around, he's battling some demon. It would be a great way to set it up.
Oh, I agree. Going forward with the Fiend character, rumor has it that he's going to be in a feud with Braun Strowman for the Universal
Mm-hmm.
title, and I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, I personally don't think the Fiend needs a title, because number one, they screwed it up with the Hell in the Cell match. Then they realized they can't put Seth over on him, so they gave him the title in Saudi Arabia, and then he gets squashed by Goldberg. So for him to go after the title with Braun, the story's there, obviously, because Bray Wyatt's the one that brought Braun Strowman to the WWE in the Wyatt family. But how are they going to book it? Who's going to come out on top? Does the Fiend come out on top and get the title back, and then the whole Goldberg Braun thing was just really nothing other than just to get the title off Bray to go with Cena, or or do they go with Braun? But then you're killing the Fiend character again.
It might be one way to work it in by uneducated opinion is, I'm gonna explain it, where you have more than one storyline with the champion at a time. And
Yep.
the same with the Fiend. Fiend has Cena coming after him. Bray, for some reason, has his eyes on Braun, and then once
Mm-hmm.
Roman can come out of like everybody else, Roman's like, well, hey, that was my spot. You only have it because I had to give up my spot for whatever. So the important thing is
Yeah.
you have converging storylines, which they haven't really done in a long time. It used to be quite when
Right.
I was growing up. It used to be quite. You always had more than one person, coming after. Not always, but you quite often had people coming more than one storyline. So if they did something like that, it might make some type of sense. But
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely. No, I agree with you, and that would kind of be a throwback to some of the booking of the late '90s, early 2000s, Attitude Era, Ruthless Aggression era, and they're pushing the Ruthless Aggression series on the network to the point where they're actually airing the first 3 episodes on FS1 coming up soon. I mean, especially now with the state of the world, Fox Sports is literally turning to the WWE. There's no sports going on. WWE is the only sports on Fox right now. So, we saw, I believe they showed a WrestleMania on Fox, and they had WrestleMania on the Fox app, Fox Now, on pay-per-view on there. They had WrestleMania on ESPN for 3 weeks before, and actually the day of this day 2. Just amazing to see. WWE is through this, COVID-19 pandemic is cashing in. I mean, they're having their content everywhere.
Yeah, I mean that's one thing that has, I guess, worked out for their benefit, especially as there's uncertainty whether how not whether but how Raw and SmackDown are going to, and I guess NXT and everything else are going to go forward, whether it's going to be some version of live or recorded. You're definitely getting older fans who maybe straight away, or more casual fans, like, okay, I'm bored, there's no basketball, let me watch this.
Right. I do from the reports I've heard is that WWE is going to be going forward with live Raws, SmackDowns, and NXTs from the Performance Center. I guess all wrestlers are carrying essential media passes now, for to travel to Orlando, because Florida's still under the stay-at-home order. But they're all the wrestlers all the people that are coming have the essential media, and WWE is gonna, from what I was told, they're taking severe precautions. They're changing the mats between every match. They're sanitizing the ropes between every match. Like, they're going through everything. And it's one of those things that's going to be highly debated, and you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. A lot of people, especially like Ryback, is saying, you guys got to shut down for the wrestlers' health and well-being and everything. And then you got a lot of people that are thankful at least there's some kind of entertainment that's still going on, because everything else is shut down. So, they're damned if they do, damned if they don't. I will say, I'm enjoying AEW's empty arena shows a little bit better, because at least they're having some of the underneath talent as audience. So you kind of get a little bit of that crowd feeling.
Right, but that's also too. I mean, everybody has to have the temperature checks and this, that, and the other thing. I mean, the WWE could have done the same thing, and I'm not saying the WWE is doing it better, but they're limiting. I mean, if they're recording, or when they're doing it, they're limiting how many people are around. How many people. How many people. So I mean, there's really no right way of doing it, and really they should probably both not be doing it. But but there's
Right.
just like, the stupid thing is that the fans are like, oh, Vince is forcing them to do it. So what's Cody and Khan? Are they not forcing him to do it? Like, they
Right,
take volunteers
exactly.
out? If they don't do it, Vince is going to fire them. Okay, but what about Khan and like Cody and whoever actually owns the company? They're not. Like,
Right.
a lot of them, not all of them, but quite a few of them live in Florida, so the traveling isn't, so
Yeah.
bad for them. But obviously, not all of them do. I know, like Moxley was in Vegas, whatever. And Randy was in Missouri, and obviously some of them have to travel, so that makes it a little bit easier that some of them are there. Cuts down slightly on the risk of traveling, but the fans just have too much stupidity, and in many ways, it's like Vince, Vince is forcing them. It's just, that's not true. I mean, if they're adults. If they're gonna say, like, screw you, I don't want to risk myself. Sure, he could fire them, but it's
Right.
gonna look really, really.
Really bad.
Oh my god.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I feel like going forward, it's going to be crazy because I know Money in the Bank was already canceled at the Royal Farms Arena in Baltimore. So I have a feeling that, going through Money in the Bank, it's going to be at the Performance Center. And, there's so much uncertainty
Right.
with this virus. We don't know when we're going to be coming off lockdown. We don't know when we'll be able to have large groups of people gathering again. Some of the models say it might not be till August. Some of the models are saying it could be the end of May. So we just don't know. Uh, and it's going to take its toll. I mean, we just heard yesterday that the XFL decided to suspend its operations and not have the 2021 season. Uh, another huge hit. Um, it seems like the XFL is unfortunately just
Yeah,
doomed
it
this
really does.
year.
And people were really enjoying. At least I had seemed to have quite a few friends who were really enjoying it. But I don't watch any type of
Yeah.
football, so I couldn't tell you one thing or the other about it. But I had a lot of
Okay.
friends who were always like posting about it, excited about it, and arguing over it just like they do, with the NFL. So it is a shame to all those people, and with them and any company that's shutting down and laying off their people because of it, because of the virus.
Yeah. Um, so moving away from wrestling a little bit, not necessarily wrestling, but at least moving away from current day stuff. Who were some of your favorite wrestlers growing up, and seeing that you've been a fan for upwards of 3 decades? Uh, who are some of your
So
favorites?
way back in the olden days, the MSG network used to show
Mm-hmm.
not only house shows for the WWE, but they used to show the NWA and WCCW. So I got to see like a lot
Okay.
of great stuff. I love Devon Eric, Michael Hayes, um, Barry Windham. I was never too big into Hogan. I never really liked Hogan. I was never really a fan of Ric Flair. I mean, the Horsemen were, of course, legendary and great. Um, there were these two South African brothers who wrestled for WCCW, Shawn and Steve Simpson. Um, I loved them. They were really good. And then, of course, you go into, the Rockers. I was a big fan of the Rockers stuff.
Yep.
Still a fan Sean, Bret Hart, uh, Eddie. Pretty much a lot of the standards. But I always liked a lot of the people, too, that nobody. I was a big fan of Tito Santana. So
Okay.
pretty eclectic. Uh, she's my I'm in the room with my mother. She wanted to go on record that she's a huge fan of Titus O'Neil. Loves him. She loves Titus.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so pretty much a lot of people. I didn't really discriminate. Junkyard Dog, Coco Beware. I love, I just
Yep.
enjoyed, wrestling. Of course, I had my favorites, and I always, I always will. Now my favorites
Right.
tend to be people that everybody else, hates. Jinder, Corbin. Those are
Yep.
two of my favorites.
I never knew that MSG Network would
Yeah,
play NWA
yeah,
or
and then
WCCW.
was MSG,
I
and
mean,
then like the original, probably like TBS or something like that. They would play it, but yeah,
yep.
the original MSG. Well, when it was first out, I guess now it's actually the US Network. I don't actually know. They would show all sorts
Mm.
of stuff. They would show the house shows. WWE was in town. They would have the house shows. Yeah. Bruno
Oh wow.
Sammartino
Okay.
was, of course, always big in my family, being Italian. You know who I used to
Yep.
love? Dino Bravo too. I loved him.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't see much of Dino Bravo. I literally learned about him towards the end of his
Mm-hmm.
career when he was in WWE back in the late '80s, early '90s. Uh, and it's funny because I'm very interested in his story. I'm anxiously awaiting the episode of Dark Side of the Ring about Dino Bravo and his story and how he got
Mhm.
murdered and everything. I'm looking forward to it because I think that's very interesting. Um, have you
I
been
have
watching
them
Dark Side
all
of the
on
Ring?
DVR. I have not yet seen one of them. And Harry, my good friend and former podcast leader there, he's always like to, always telling me about them. Everybody's always talking about them. And I
Hmm.
love crime and mystery stuff. I'm a huge Criminal Minds fan, except the last two seasons. That's a whole podcast for another
Yeah.
time. Um, uh, so I see something where you think, and everybody's always telling me like, oh, it's on, you got to see this. And I have them all on DVR, but I haven't watched any of them yet. And partly it's because I'm quite familiar with a lot of the stories. Obviously not in depth
Hmm.
as they go. And there's to me, it's just like some things I feel like I'm better off not, you know, not knowing. I'm definitely, I don't know, I guess using the term older school. Like I don't want to say don't really care. All this stuff is important. This is, interesting, stuff and everything. It should not be minimized. But like all the backstage and personal life stuff, I don't really care about that with any,
Hmm.
celebrity. So for the
Right.
most part, there's a couple like into it. I always want to know the gossip, but for the most part, it's like it is what it is. I'll get around to watching them, but I haven't yet.
Yeah, I mean, I highly recommend them. And I'm the same way. Like, I don't really care. I don't watch Total Divas or Total Bellas
Mm-hmm.
because I really don't care about the reality type shows or whatever. But when it comes to like true crime and some of the backstage stuff, like I really enjoyed the Benoit episode. And I didn't know, like, it was almost like Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit, their stories were
Mm-hmm.
so connected. You know, they were best friends, but it went deeper than just, starting in WCW and then them winning the titles together, having the titles together at WrestleMania 20. And um, I never knew, like,
Mm-hmm.
how close they were. Like, I, you know, and it just kind of gives you a different perspective. I'll never say that Chris Benoit, was justified what he did. Of course not. He murdered his wife, he murdered his son, but it kind of gives a new light because of all the brain injuries that he's had from the concussions and how because of all the concussions, his brain was like that of a 70-year-old dementia patient with advanced dementia. Being in deep, deep, deep depression because Eddie had passed away and a lot of his friends in the wrestling business had passed away. Johnny Grunge uh, and Eddie Guerrero and, you know, going back with even Owen Hart. Um, so it kind of gives it a new spin on things. Like was not someone who was malicious. He just wasn't in his right mind. And, and of course you're going to have the conspiracy theories of, Kevin Sullivan did it or whatever, or had something to do with it. That's whatever. The evidence is the
Mm-hmm.
evidence is the evidence, Uh, but I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed last season with the Montreal screw job, and again, it's like stuff we knew, but we knew the story behind it, but it kind of went more in depth, and even some of the wrestlers who think
Right.
the whole thing was a work, uh, you know, and we'll never know. I mean, the only people that really know whether it's a work or not are Vince McMahon and Bret Hart, um, and we'll never know. I am looking forward to the Owen Hart episode at the end of the year this year. It's the first time Martha Hart is actually speaking publicly with anything to do with wrestling, um, about Owen and the situation. So that's going to be a good one. Um, I can't wait. So I highly recommend it. If you do get time to watch it, I do highly recommend it. Um, so out of how are you enjoying AEW? Being that they are the new kid on the block, and started by the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega and Cody Rhodes and Tony Khan. How do you see how do you see it going and the evolution of it? Because I have seen changes
I
from
mean, they had
October until
to.
now.
It started out. So they're great. I don't watch it religiously. I'm not gonna lie, I don't watch it
Okay.
religiously. Actually, so it's for me, it's on the weird time, and I DVR a lot of stuff that I end up not watching. But it, on the flip side of the coin,
Hmm.
I do read about it. I do follow up on it. I do follow, all the news on it and everything like that. So like I'm more or less up to date on it, and I go back and I watch the things. I'm a big Jericho, Moxley, and Hager fan. Very unpopular opinion, but I've said it
Hmm.
before on the podcast I did with Harry and Tony. I really couldn't care less about the Young Bucks. I don't buy into. They're great, absolutely. Um, I don't buy into their hype any more than I buy into anybody else's. I don't really think they're the end all and be all of the greatest tag team. But I find them, and I know of course it's rough to separate sometimes the personality from the person, but I got
Right.
turned off initially to AEW because I think they went overboard in selling their product and bashing, not selling their product. They need to do that, but in terms of using bashing the WWE to do it. Now the WWE has many things to bash about it and whatnot, but I think they've really played the fans, and the WWE does it as well. I'm
Hmm.
not going to deny that, to the extent that they created this huge "it's them" or one or the other. Um, because, and I say it all the time,
Yep.
these people don't hate each other. Some of some of them live next door to each other, and such they're all still friends. And if God
Right.
bless Jericho, if Vince offered him $40 million, I'm sure he'd go back. So I think they're doing a great job.
Yeah.
I think they've seen the changes. I think they were a little too all over the place, and now I think they're finding their stride and it's a little more cohesive.
I agree with you. Um, and I'm in the same camp with you that I don't think the Young Bucks are the best tag team in the world. Far from it. They're athletic, but I can't watch a match that's
Mm-hmm.
25 minutes of super kicks. Flip flop and fly. I'm not about that. There's a time and a place for it, but now it's gotten so ingrained in a lot of wrestling that it's in almost every match, and I don't, I don't buy that. Um, I do not agree that Kenny Omega is one of the best wrestlers in the world. Absolutely not. Um, I don't know. And I'll admit, part of me is probably because I listen to Jim Cornette religiously. His anti Omega and anti Bucks and that. But it's like I'll give credit where credit is due. Omega's a tremendous athlete, but the I guess his approach to wrestling, the fact that it's a performance, which we know it's a performance, but you don't have
Right.
to rub our faces in it. Like, um, we know that it's choreographed. We know that it's not a legitimate sports contest. We know all that, but we don't need to have you putting that at the forefront of our faces. So much of the stuff nowadays looks so much like a cooperation dance move. It's not. Uh, it's not something that you could buy into as being quote unquote
Right.
realistic looking. Uh, and I would. I can't wait. I want to see. We just saw yesterday the Revival was given their releases from WWE. Um, and quite honestly, they'll have the 90-day no compete clause. So, in about 3 months, I have a feeling they're going to wind up in AEW. Uh, and we could see whatever their team name is going to be down there, uh, going up against the Young Bucks and uh, some of the other top tag teams down there. I will say that like I said, I have seen the change in AEW from October until now, even going back to a Double or Nothing last year. I think, like, because a lot of their wrestlers, with the exception of Jericho at the time, and Cody and Dustin, a lot of their wrestlers were just
Mm-hmm.
indie wrestlers. With the addition of Moxley, with the addition of Hager, and now Matt Hardy, um, it kind of solidifies the roster to the point of, okay, well, now there's some veterans of, primetime, not nationwide wrestling there to kind of
Yeah.
solidify it. You could keep the the indie guys on AEW Dark or whatever, but when it comes to your main product that's going to be on TNT every week, here are the guys you got to focus on. I'm really high on MJF. I'm really high on Sammy Guevara. Uh, I like I like both of them, and MJF, I got to say, is probably the best heel in the
Oh
business
yeah,
at this point.
he's really knocking it out of the park. I think both companies, whether the fans want to admit it or not, suffer from the same issues. You have a huge amount
Yep.
of talent. I mean, listen, I can't do anything these people do, man or woman. I could barely walk a straight line some days. I can't do what they do. I always try to preface what I'm saying with that
Right.
is that um, in terms of one company, over the other, you can't really compare them. One's been around for, seems like thousands of years. The other one is new, and
Mm-hmm.
um, their biggest thing is, oh well, the other company's, bad, and they still do that a little bit, too much. Oh, we're better than them because we're younger, or we didn't take Vince's, nonsense. Um,
Yeah.
so, but they both suffer from the same things, in my opinion. They have what crazy talented guys and gals, um, with only a handful of
Mm-hmm.
them that can speak on, handle the mic work. Um, so the whole thing
Right.
with, and more power to Cody. He's really pulled this whole thing together. He's one that can handle, in my opinion, handle the mic. So you still have your senior people, just like in the WWE, on top. It's the ones that can handle the mic.
Yep.
Nobody comes close to Jericho. Let's be honest. You know, if anybody wants to tell me that,
Right.
I'm just going to tell them they're an idiot. Nobody comes close to Jericho. Um, so it's the same thing.
Right.
And then you have Matt, who, wow, did a man ever reinvent himself as much as Matt, who's pretty much a genius on the mic these days. Even on his birthday, they both have the same thing. You have all this talent, only if you can, work on the mic. And it's something I think both companies, somehow or another need to, work on or address um, some way. But there's lots of things to enjoy in both shows, and then there's things to take away from um, both shows. But the biggest issue with both shows is the fans.
Yeah, I agree completely. Um, and it was never like that. It wasn't like that until social media became so big. And I think a lot social media in general has really hurt the wrestling business for a couple reasons. One, you the wrestlers themselves are closer than ever to their fans, and you can see the personal lives of the wrestlers. And and we know they're playing characters. We know that. That's not a secret. But I think because I made this analogy on my last podcast. You watch movies, you watch sitcoms, you watch soap operas. You see the actors and actresses on the shows, and it's like
Right.
they're playing a character. You know, and you don't that's not who they are in a in their personal life or their real life or whatever. Take whoever it is, Jim Carrey or Jerry Seinfeld or whoever. Um, but yet with wrestlers, I think we want to believe that they
Right.
are their persona on TV, and it's because they're even though they're playing a character, they're playing the same character for the most part, other than
Mm-hmm.
if like they switch companies or they get a different name or whatever. But they're the same person. It's not like they're going to be recast. And when WWE did that with the new Diesel and Razor Ramon, it
Right.
just absolutely bombed. But it's like you look at somebody's personal life. Like I remember a couple of years ago when Alexa Bliss was still a heel, and it's like I follow her on Twitter, so I see her posting pictures of you know, the deaf pig that she adopted and everything. And I'm like, you have such a big heart. I can't boo you. Like, and I know they're playing the character and I know that that's what they want, but I can't find it to not like her because
Yeah,
of how good of a person she
there's
is.
very few that you can get past what you know about them in reality. Like Sammy. Sammy's great at being a jerk. Sammy's great at being a jerk, but you also
Yeah.
know from following him on social media that he's this amazing guy that's, raising hundreds of thousands of dollars to, save people. So that was the type of person,
Right.
and he doesn't
Yeah.
do it to, show off or this, that, and the other thing. And like, for me, Corbin, everybody loves to boo Corbin, whatever, whatever. I don't think Corbin's as awful as people currently want to make him out to be. But for me,
No. No, he's not.
I don't even know how I started watching it. Are you familiar with um, his video game group, The Sweets? Him, Sean Spears, and Tyler Breeze. They're always on like Twitch and
Mm-hmm.
what's that other one? The one you watch through the Xbox Mixer. So I think
Yeah. Yep.
I don't even know how I started watching him, and he's so engaging, and he's so entertaining, and he's so like normal, and they all are. So like you see
Yep.
you see the other part of it. So even though you see him like this like goofy guy joking around with the fans, sucking at video games, you know, you can separate it from the jerk he is on air because you can see a little bit of it. But not it is hard like with people like
Right.
Bliss and certain other ones
Yep.
that you feel like, oh, how am I supposed to boo them? They're so nice.
Right. Yeah.
And it sucks because they don't,
Uh,
they're doing well as a heel, but they still have this huge fan base. But why can't you cheer the heels? There's nothing wrong with that.
right. No, I get it. And going back to
Mhm.
MJF, he stays in character. He's an asshole on Twitter. He's an asshole in person. He wouldn't sign an
Oh my
autograph
god, that
for a
was
kid
great.
and gave the kid a middle finger. Uh, it's like it was
Yeah.
great. You don't see that nowadays. I mean, back in the 60s, 70s, 80s when kayfabe was so big, you know, that's all you ever saw
Right.
was people staying in character. Uh, I remember, but it's like again, sometimes we meet them in person, their true self comes out. Like I remember going to an autograph signing for Jim the Anvil
Mhm.
Neidhart years and years ago, uh, and he was like a snot in person, but he was portraying a baby face on TV. Uh, so after that, I kind of got a bad taste in my mouth, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to cheer for this guy. But I was never a
Right.
huge Hart Foundation fan, anyways. Uh, I was never a Bret Hart fan. Um, you know, and I've only recently started to come around on Daniel Bryan. I was never really a big Daniel Bryan fan
We don't want to go there
until
with me because
very
that'll be a
recently.
3 hour podcast of why I dislike Daniel Bryan.
um, well, and you know what? Let's open that door a little bit at least. I think for me, it's because and
Mm-hmm.
don't get me wrong, he paid his dues. He went through the Indies, he went through Ring of Honor, he went through Dragon Gate, came up through the WWE ranks. I get it, but I think what pissed me off so much about Daniel Bryan is the the fans just wouldn't take no for an answer when he
Mm-hmm.
was, a mid Carter. Like they wanted him as the world champion, and in my opinion, he was never world champion material. Um, it's like when in 2015 when Roman Reigns won the Royal
Mm-hmm.
Rumble, and um, and and everybody wanted Daniel Bryan,
Mm-hmm.
and they booed Reigns mercilessly out of the building. I'm like, whoa, like what's so bad about a guy who actually looks like a champion, who actually has that look and that skill, and you're booing him for what reason? Daniel Bryan, he's, and again, maybe it's the old school mentality that I have. He's smaller. He's, a submission wrestler, and quite honestly, in my opinion, submission wrestlers aren't usually the ones that get the big, the titles.
Yes, I think it's not. I don't think I have. For me, I don't really subscribe to the he doesn't have the look of a champion or anything like that. Um, so much. I mean, Eddie, smaller. Ray was smaller, but they were much more built, obviously, as well. And okay,
Right.
so if there's one person I like less, I like Daniel Bryan. It's Rey Mysterio. That would be the second part of the 3 hour, 6
Okay.
hours. Um, yeah, but anyway, so for me, it's not like so much that they're smaller, they don't have this look or that look, or whatever. Um, for me, and I'll be very honest, if this is a great in-ring talent, nobody can deny that. And this is going to sound stupid, but this is what fully formed my opinion on him. I never was into Total Divas. I've watched it a few times when there were like people were things I wanted to see, what Total Bell is, but
Mm-hmm.
the Bellas have a YouTube channel as well, right? You see a whole other
Yeah.
side of them. You realize that they're not, even when you see a little bit on Total Bellas, but they're not the idiots that everybody wants, to make them out to be. They run like how many companies, But when
Right.
but
Yep.
Daniel consistently came off as such an obnoxious douchebag in these videos, especially when Brie was
Mm-hmm.
pregnant, it was kind of the point of like if this was like a scripted TV show, you'd be rooting for them to break up and her hard to find the truth. At least that's how I saw it. But
Oh,
again, I'm
wow.
older than most of their base fans, so maybe that's how I see it. So he just constantly came with there was
Yeah.
one that always sticks in my head. Nikki and John were still together, and
Mm-hmm.
they used to play this game, and I still do it. I haven't really watched in a while. Bella Brains, where they quiz them, like who was smarter.
Okay.
And he was always so condescending to Nikki. And on one of the rare occasions that Cena was in the video, he like totally called him out about it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like really like, you need to like, watch it. And it's true because he was always, and even to like Brie, almost like mocking them about like things that they didn't know. And it just came off like such, and like it kind of was like, okay, is this what he's really like? Like, ugh, I don't know you,
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So, yeah, I could definitely understand that. Absolutely. Um, yeah, and again, that goes to show you
Mm-hmm.
why wrestling shouldn't be on reality TV and the social media. It's like keep the characters, keep
But,
kayfabe. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Uh, but anyways,
oh, you're welcome.
thank you for coming on. Great episode. Great discussion. Let the fans know where they can find you on Twitter,
Um,
Instagram, social media.
Instagram and Twitter are the same. Lizzie P224. Um,
Okay.
I do have another
Mm-hmm.
Instagram, 2_live underscore fit. I don't even know what it's fit underscore live, which documents my attempt to lose
Mm-hmm.
weight. If you're interested in that. Other than that, that's it. I
Okay.
kind of tweet about anything and everything. It's not really just wrestling related. But I'm not. Excuse me.
Okay. All right. Well, Liz, thank you for coming on, and it's been great, and I will
Awesome,
definitely
great. Thanks for
we'll
having me.
definitely do this again at some point.
You too. Bye.
All right. Have a great day. Okay, so that was Liz Pugliese. And I didn't realize how big of a Daniel Bryan hater she was. She's in good company because I'm not a huge Daniel Bryan fan either. But that's great to hear. But anyways, find her, online. She gave her Twitter and Instagram handles. And we'll do more of these. If you're looking to come on a podcast and you're looking to have some fun, talk wrestling, talk anything, let me know. You can follow me on Twitter at the Apicella SWE, or follow the Sportswire on Twitter and Instagram at Sportswire Audio. Email me, sportswireaudio@gmail.com, or just go over to sportswireaudio.com for, that'll bring you to our anchor.fm page. And folks, we'll be back probably sooner rather than later, especially with this quarantine coronavirus. I am working more, which is why I haven't been doing a lot of daily podcasts. I have been working more often, so it's kind of hard to record when I'm at work. So I want to thank you all for listening. My name is Vinny Apicella, and we will be back next time on the Sports Wire.